Hey everybody, this is All Things Cheryl. Basically, here with another review and another recap of a series that I have been following for about 5 years. But before I get on with that series, it's going to be Greenleaf. We're going into the final episode, the fifth episode, and the sixth day. Let's do some housekeeping. Let's view. Let's click. Let's comment. Let's ring the notification. And let's become a subscriber. Sixth day, Greenleaf. The bishop. The bishop is basically on the phone. And the reason why the bishop is on the phone is because he is highly, highly upset. He is highly, highly upset is because Rochell basically is roaming Memphis scot-free. And he wants to know why she's able to get away with a lot of stuff. And remember, she embezzled a lot of money from him with a Bitcoin scam. So he's upset. In the meantime, while he's upset, Lady Mae is basically trying to get him and trying to get Grace to make sure that he basically makes his appointment. It's because last year he had a stroke while he was on the stage. Now, while he's basically upset, and he told Lady Mae that right now his health is important, but right now he feels that getting the new church up is most important, and he's going to be on his way to the church to make sure that everything is okay for him and for them, basically for the church. Meanwhile, we basically have Grace. And we see that Grace is basically um, trying to do everything with his father, with her father, but she gets a call from Darius, right? And apparently Darius has basically went to, I believe it was Las Vegas, and basically went to get some more information about this lending company that Bob Whitmore basically was involved with. And while he was there, interesting things happened. He got his laptop stolen, and also he got his phone stolen. But he called Grace, but he called Grace with another phone, and Grace didn't really recognize that phone number, and so she said, "Who is this? What is this phone number?" And she looked at the phone number because she didn't recognize who it was, and so she figured it was Darius. And so that's when Darius asked her, "Do you have that information that you and I was sharing?" And she says, "Yes, I do." And the moment that she opened up her laptop, that's when her laptop got hijacked. It was somebody who jacked up her laptop. Hacker went in and basically started to delete the files right there in front of her while she was basically on the phone with Darius. In my opinion, I was like, I was like, well, cut it off, unplug it, stop it. But I don't know if that does it, but sometimes it does. When I used to have problems with some people trying to download some stuff, I'll just like snatch the plug out, even though I know sometimes that's not a good way, but that's what I would have done. And so now we see Charity, right? We see Charity. Charity is basically in her car, but she noticed that while she was getting ready to go somewhere, somebody was basically at the gate. Well, guess who was at the gate? Shabazz. Shabazz was basically, Mr. Shabazz was at the gate. That is Phil's father. So apparently, Charity was able to persuade Mr. Shabazz. I think that's correct. Shabazz. So he thought about what Grace and Charity was basically trying to do when it deals with Bob Whitmore. So Charity finally gets a chance to meet her would have been father-in-law, and so we see that Grace meets Mr. Shabazz, and he says, "Oh, this is the person. Are you the one that I hung up on?" And Grace thought he was basically apologizing, but he was saying, "Oh, that's really not an apology. If you think so, well, you got it wrong." So Grace said, "Oh yeah, that's really Phil's father." And so Carissa and Jacob, Chris and Jacob is basically sitting down and talking about the divorce, and that Carissa is beginning to have a little bit more heart. Is kind of like softening right now, and she wants to you could tell that she's in love, still in love with Jacob, even with all of the things that basically Jacob did over the years as far as cheating on Carissa. And I actually think that, you know, one time she only cheated one time, but Jacob cheated several times. Yeah, don't ask me what's going on with that, but anyway. And so we see that Jacob and Carissa is working out. Meantime, we see Charity, and we see Grace, and we see Mr. Shabazz. He had agreed to meet with Darius and basically tell Darius exactly what was going on with Bob Whitmore, and how basically his wife basically got involved with Bob Whitmore. They're basically finding out that Bob Whitmore doing some shady lending. In other words, doing high lending to black families, poor families, to get them to buy the house, and unable to pay for their mortgage and everything, and a lot of them went into foreclosure. So we see them. And so we find out that Mr. Shabazz says that if you are, it told Darius that if you are able to basically find someone who is willing to talk about the high lending and how they were coerced into selling their home because they really couldn't afford it, then basically I will, step up to the plate, and I will basically tell you all I know, but it still have to be highly underground. But I don't know will it highly be underground, but he was like, in other words, I'll do it, but I still have to be in hiding, incognito. And so after we see that Darius and Grace and Charity had basically talked to Mr. Shabazz, he stopped Grace and asked Grace, he says, when all of this is done, I basically want to talk to you about our future. I would say, oh, all right. He wants to get back. He wants to make a family, just like Noah wants a family with her, too. So Grace got two men basically wanting her. And so we see that Lady Mae basically uh, was having a conversation with Tara. Tara James, basically Rochelle's sister, and so Lady Mae was basically having a conversation with her and started asking her all kinds of information. And Tara says, well, she didn't really know that her sister was basically back from Mexico, and she had no idea as to what her sister basically was up to. But Lady Mae is not going for it. She says, well, Why do you still want my house and everything? And so Tara says, well, a lot of things that my sister do, but you have to remember, she still is my sister. So they really didn't say too much, and basically that is true. Even though there's a lot of stuff going on, blood sometimes can be thicker than water. While all of this is going on, we see that, kind of reading over my notes. Okay. We see while all of this is going on, while Lady Mae is basically having a conversation with Tara James, uh, the bishop is basically at the bar, looking at everything, and the person who is supposed to be doing the demolition, who is supposed to be doing the remodeling, told him that there is going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, right? And so, guess who pops up? Of course, Rochelle. Rochelle pops up looking fabulous in this leather jacket. Basically, it looked good on her. She was in this leather jacket, and so you could tell the face over the bishop. He was like, I don't even know what. Why are you here? What's the purpose? What's your intent? In so many words, he didn't say what the purpose and what's the intent, but he basically said, what do you want? What do you want? And this is when she said a lot of things, but I'm going to say we had a moment of the color purple. Remember, Celie told her a family, until you do right by me, everything that you do is going to come right back to you. Well, basically, this is what Rochelle was basically telling the bishop. She said, well, it seems like everything is really crumbling in so many words around you, but everything is really working out for me. And then so this is when the bishop said, look, you're evil, you're crazy. And then this is when Rochelle basically gave him that, I don't like you, I wish, and then she went on and said, I wish that basically my brother basically should have killed you when he had the opportunity to do it. And then that's when Rochelle basically turned and went on, turned her back to the bishop and walked out the door. While this is going on, Noah and AJ. Grace was basically hanging out with Charity, but she basically got a call from Noah letting her know that they have to accompany AJ at the doctor. Apparently, AJ is trying to get on the right track. It seems that him and his papa, Noah, is basically bonding, and Grace is kind of just due to the fact that she basically did everything she could to get him to open up, and he is doing very well. He's willing to take his new medication. He basically told them that he has a new medication. It's only once. He only has to take it one time. He says that's totally different from taking, I guess he had like a lot of other pills and had to take it several times. Well, with this one particular medication, he only has to take it once. So he was happy about that. And he was happy due to the fact that he saw Noah and Grace, his mama and his papa, kind of bonding, kind of looking at each other. And this is when Noah says, well, I see exactly how I happened to pop up onto the scene. And so Grace says, well, Noah, how did you were able to basically get him to do his treatment and also get this medication? Noah says, well, I don't know, but I think it has something to do with your father. And she says, with my father? He says, yeah, due to the fact that time, I think it was the last Sunday that we met, the father offered him a I guess a deal that he could not refuse is because he told Grace that he has been talking about the GTO that his grandfather had offered him. He's basically been showing it to his grandmother. So I guess that, but you could see the look on Grace's face. And she was basically very, very jealous due to the fact that he wouldn't bond or opened up with her like that. Well, we have to remember now, sometimes fathers has a different way to basically handle things. And so we see that. I'm reading my notes again. I'll be with you in a minute. Give me a minute. That Zara is basically kind of really, not kind of, but she is really, really upset due to the fact that her mother and father are basically getting a divorce, and she, in somewhat, well, she's not running away from home with a young man this time around, but she is trying to run away to get to another school. And so her cousin, Sophia, comes in and she asks Sophia to basically help her so she with the tripod so she can take a selfie, so she can take a headshot and send it to the school that she wants to attend, which is basically in New York. And so Sophia, while she was tussling with the tripod, she noticed a notification for Zora plane ticket, were for notification for to know that your ticket is ready. You need to come and basically pick it up. And so while Sophia and Zara dealing with the cousin aspect, we see that Charity shows up at the church. She shows up at the church with Phil's father. And Phil was basically highly upset due to the fact that he hadn't really seen his father in years. But prior to that, we see Phil and Judy digging in and going through some old files, and she was saying she was really impressed due to the fact that the files and everything was in good shape and everything. And she says, well, I didn't think that she was doing a good job because basically she had music, those little pods in her ears and listening to music. I didn't think she was, doing her job. But Phil kind of checked her in a little bit and said, well, what do you mean? And so while they was talking about it, all of a sudden, because they were in the dark, all of a sudden the lights come on and she burst into her. A light, light must come on, something Charity said. And this is when we see Phil and the father, Mr. Shabazz. And this is when Charity says, I have someone for you. And she introduced Mr. Shabazz. Uh, Phil wasn't too happy. And then Judy was like, who is this? Who is this? And then this is when Mr. Sabaz says, I'm his father. And then this is when Judy took her opportunity, says, I'm the future wife. And she, did her little hands with the ring on it. I can't stand her. She's so skinny. And then the fact that she is definitely a little Becky and a little Karen. Ugh, I just don't like her character. So, and this is when Mr. Shabazz basically went into the explanation as to what Bob Whitmore was doing as far as getting black people, poor people, to basically take out all of these high-priced loans and things like this. And this is when Judy was saying, well, her father loves black people and everything, But this is when Phil, you could tell he was still basically upset now, because we know that Phil's wife was basically the face for black people to basically go and take out these high price loans, just like some of these companies who perpetrate basically being blackballed all in a while. They are basically a white company with black faces, because they know that if you see a black face, and if they know it's owned by, I mean, particularly uh, that they will buy black, because they're thinking that they're buying black and they're spending black, but in actuality, they're not. So we have to be very, very careful when it comes to making sure that black owned and black, that we spend black, and it is truly, truly, truly owned by black, and no one actually is perpetrating it. And so Phil was highly upset, and he, was threatening to call the police, and he told his pop that he didn't really want to see him again, and he basically called him by his true name. In the meantime, we see that while all of this is going on, we see that Winky and Clarissa was basically getting ready to pack up and to getting ready to leave. And and Jacob was basically interrupting an intense conversation that was basically going on between the bishop and Lady Mae. Well, the bishop is kind of really highly upset. It's because the bishop told Lady Mae, basically, you have been living a lie for well over 40 years. And this is when Jacob interrupted and said, well, Winky and Carissa is getting ready to leave. Do you think we can come down and make it kind of a natural thing, make it seem like all the family is together? And then this is when Lady Mae took the opportunity of being herself, throwing some verses at Jacob and saying, well, the next time when you get married, make sure that you're in love and that you will not cheat on them. And so this is this is when the bishop really jabbed at, well, not really jabbing, because he was upset with Lady Mae, and he basically said, how dare you? How dare you tell somebody in so many words how to live, when basically you have been living a lie all of your life for well over 40 years. And so Lady Mae really didn't really have much to say, because basically it was that. And so this is when we see that. And so while they were basically standing at the stairways, checking out and looking at each other and watching Winky and Carissa drive off into the sunset, we see Lady Mae. Lady Mae says, I have something to tell you guys, since we are getting ready to start our church, and our church is New Beginnings. Well, I have something I need to tell you all that I've been basically carrying around for 40 years. And then Grace looks at her mother and said, we're going to do this? We're going to do this out here like this now? We're going to do this? And so this is when she made the announcement. She says, well, really, this is about you, Grace. She says, for 40 years, I have carried and I have committed adultery. And I've committed adultery with Lionel. And Lionel. And this is when everybody kind of stopped in their tracks, and they were like, what the hell going on here? They were like, they really couldn't say anything. And then she says, dinner is at 7:30. And then this is when we see all of the kids. We see Charity, we see Grace, and we see Jacob, all around with wine glasses, and they're basically stunned, because Grace says, this is the quietest dinner that I have ever we have ever, and the table has ever had. It's because everybody was like quiet. I guess they was like they couldn't believe what they were talking about. So they were basically making their jokes and everything. And then this is when Jacob said, "Well, we were wondering basically how everybody was basically so you were light skinned." And this is when they made a light skin joke about Grace, the fact that yeah, you really light skinned. And they said, well, mom's light skinned. And Jacob said, yeah, but mom was just light skinned. You know what I mean? Like light skin. And so then Grace basically and Jacob was saying, do you really realize how much agony and everything that mom basically took me through about my cheating and everything? And then Grace says, well, do you realize exactly? I had hell from the, and so what I have held from the very beginning. And so we see a scene, we see another scene, and we see a scene between Sophia and Zara. And Sophia basically, Zara came in and talked to Zara and said, you are definitely a snitch, but guess what? I basically let your mother know that you did not want to go back to Hampton because of the pictures that you put over the internet. And Sophia says, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And so Sophia said, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And so Sophia didn't really get upset. She says, okay. I guess it's fair game, right? And so while we're dealing with that, Grace and Charity and Jacob are still, joking about each other. And this is when Grace gets a call from Darius, and Darius says, "We got him, we got him." And Darius says, "Meet me at my apartment." So Grace hangs up the phone and tells sisters. The brother said, "Look, I got somewhere to go. I'll talk to you in a little while." Meanwhile, we see Grace, walking up to Darius' apartment. It's pitchy dark and it's kind of when I first saw her, I was like, really, I got this kind of eerie feeling, right? And then all of a sudden, she called Darius' phone, and he went straight to the messenger. And then his car drives up, and then all of a sudden, these bright headlights come through, and we see, I don't even know who this guy was. And this guy said, we don't care about journalists. Journalists is not that important. You're walking kind of sort of on thread and dangerous grounds. And this when Grace says, where is Darius? Where is Darius? And then the guy says, stay out of it. Stay out of it. You getting a little bit too knee deep. Stay out of it. Stay out of it. And then he turned his back and walked towards the car. And then that's when it basically turned the sixth day. Now, sixth day. There's a lot going on, and I don't know. For some reason, I'm feeling there's a little bit more to the bishop. I think what Lady Mae was basically talking about earlier about the fact that Mrs. Davis did not even know who, James and the church or anything was, and to her brother started mentioning something about it. And I think the black man that they basically was mentioning in the journal that Grace basically came across, I think that might have been her uncle that they was talking about, or could be the bishop, not too sure. I'm feeling that Jacob and Carissa may make an amend within those couple of days. I'm feeling that I think Phil was upset due to the fact that he saw his father and he was upset and he felt that his father abandoned the family. But I believe that Phil might be the person who saved the church. We're not quite sure. As far as Bob Whitmore, we need to find out a little bit more because Bob is doing some shaky things. As far as James, I think that she's on the same side as her Rochell, sister, and I think Basie is not dead. I don't think he died in Mexico. I think he's still alive. Um, and Rochelle is basically deep hurting because the bishop called her kind of crazy. But look, this is all things, Cheryl. Basically, thank you for tuning in, and thank those new subscribers that I basically have, and looking for many, 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 many more. Until the next Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Uh, and I'm doing P Valley on Monday or Tuesday with the review and recap. And remember, we're still in the pandemic. Still wash your hands, stay 6 feet distance. If you be around crowds and people don't have masks on, make sure you at least cover your face. And remember, love is basically for everyone. Until the next time, ciao.